his lap, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight, fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance, Fluffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No sound bites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon, here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It is July 26th. It is 2:32. We are right on time. Program is set, and we're going to have an exciting show today. I'm very happy to be with everyone. And we have a lot to talk about. There's some breaking news about the attack in Germany, which has now been classified as a domestic terror attack in Germany against the LGBTQ. You probably won't be surprised by who did it, but there is an update about that attack, the stabbing, the ramming with a vehicle into the LGBT pride event in Germany. We'll be talking about that. We have a little bit of a conversation about what happened at the second annual White House conference with the news media, the Correspondents' Dinner. We'll have a little bit of that. We're going to be talking about what's going on with Iran, Saudi Arabia, how that's affecting America, what we can expect coming forward. Some other news we'll have out there. There's breaking news about what's happening in Minnesota. Yes, the capital of the front lines of the battle against MAGA, against Republicans, against America and the president, Donald Trump. They have some additional breaking news. Tim Walz is going out with a bang, and I mean quite the bang, and we'll be talking about that because it will affect your kids across this country if he's allowed to get away with what he's doing, and it is also a waste of your money, your taxpayer dollars. So we'll talk about that. And of course, throughout the entire process, we're going to be taking comments from you. Just as you can see, we have a comment from before the show even started. Our good friend Chuck from Long Island, Charles Guaria, he says, Mike, dropping by to say hi. Hello, Chuck. I hope you're having a great time doing your Uber thing, your DoorDash, and I hope that's going well for you. For those who are not familiar, every Monday at 7 p.m., we were doing the Monday Opinion Roundtable with Charles Guaria, Joe Hanush, Joe Navarra, and myself. So talking from a Democrat, a Libertarian, and me as a Republican, and Chuck was, of course, an independent. And we were doing a roundtable talking about Florida politics and New York politics. Now, sadly, I do have to announce that program has ended. And I think this is part of what Chuck is talking about here. He says, thanks for participating. on The Opinion Guy, which is his channel, which sponsored the Monday Opinion Roundtable. He says, breaks my heart to have ended that program. And with no inventory, no investors, no sponsors, I couldn't maintain the show. Break a leg. A lot of people don't realize how difficult it is to be and to continuously provide content on social media, whether it be YouTube, Rumble, and all the rest. We don't make money on this. It's very difficult. It's actually very, very difficult. That's why your sponsorship, your donations, your Rumble rants, your uh, YouTube sponsor, YouTube super chats, or if you join the membership, it makes a big difference because we don't get the money. Yes, there's a ton of commercials from YouTube and Google makes money, but we don't. So it's kind of sad, and I understand the difficulty. It's the first 6 months, which is some of the most difficult times. I know for myself over the last 20 years, I've had to maintain a day job and do this at the same time. It's one of the reasons why I don't do as much content as I could, is because I have a day job and I have to do that and spend enormous amounts of time reading the news so I can do this program as well. So I know it's a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit of inside baseball, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew why the Monday Opinion Roundtable will not be going forward. I wanted you to know what some of the difficulties we have on this program to make sure we can get the content out to you. It's something that all content creators face. And I do, of course, wish the very best to my former co-hosts, Joe Hanush and John Navarra. I know they're both in elections down in Florida. I hope they can win. I hope they have great support from the people in Florida. And I look forward to Charles. Chuck, I want to see you get your articles out there. I hope that you're going to do very well. Maybe it's, I think you're doing Substack. So let me know about that. I'll be happy to promote that. And I'm always looking forward to seeing you achieve. And just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean it won't work in the future. Something that I think is important for everyone to remember. All of the rich people in the world, everyone who's been a massive success, all the mega successes that we tend to talk about, have all failed. Every single one of them. Richard Branson, who owned Virgin Atlantic. You want to talk about Elon Musk. You want to talk about everybody. They've all had failures. Multi-million dollar, in some cases, multi-billion dollar failures. Businesses do not work. The thing that's different about the successful people, the business owners that we see, the mega successes that we talk about, they don't give up. They learn from what didn't work and they find a way to make the second try better. And maybe it takes a third try. Sometimes it takes a fourth try, but they keep working at it until they get the success to whatever degree that they can. They make the success. Not everyone will be Jeff Bezos. Okay. Not everyone will be Mark Cuban. That's okay. But you can have success for yourself on what you deem to be successful. Our channel, we want to get to 50,000 subscribers. You can do that. It costs absolutely nothing. But this year, we're going to try to get to 5,000. Again, costs you nothing. Just hit the like, share. Most importantly, hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you may be on, whether it's YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X. Oh God, what else am I on? Instagram and a few others. Please just hit the subscribe button. It makes a difference. Okay. And we do have a couple of other comments that have come in. And again, you too can be part of making your comments heard. Bronner has joined us. Hello, Bronner. He says he's sorry to hear that. He did. I know Bronner was a fan of the program and he always check in and leave a couple of comments. And I'm glad that you're here with me on Sunday as well, Bronner. Thank you for that. And I know a lot of people will be sad that we lost that program, but we will endeavor. And I'm always open. I don't mind going on. Unlike Democrats, I have no problem going on to Democrat or independent or libertarian programs and talking about my views and what I see going on and how we can better improve America. I have no problem. And hopefully someone else will have me on one of their roundtables so I can share some of my views like I do here every Sunday. Okay, getting back into the program. I want to start off with something. There's a lot of heavy news out there, But there's something that I think is going to be important to talk about a little bit. Where is it? Of course. Of course, I can't find my own news story. Uh-oh. Hang on. I'm trying to bring this up for you guys so that you can see it. There it is. So we're going to start off the program. You're going to hear a lot about this. There will be memes that will go out there. There will be podcasters, pundits, there will be Democrats who are going to tell you that this confirms it. This is the proof. You can see it from the Economic Times. It's a clip. You can go and see it probably on C-SPAN. This is from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the second try. The first one was an assassination, where we know an assassin or attempted assassin came in, was looking to kill everyone, the news media, the Trump administration, Donald Trump. He wanted to kill everyone he could find. But he was stopped by Secret Service agents, thankfully. And so they rescheduled, and this was the second try at the Correspondents' Dinner. It happened this weekend, and I thought it was pretty funny. Had a lot of really hard jabs. Remember, this is the opportunity for the president, and the only opportunity where the president can sit down the news media and they just have to take it. They just have to listen, as the president will roast them like a comedic roast, like a Comedy Central roast. That's what most people are used to seeing these days. And this is a long-standing tradition where the president gets to go back and make mean-spirited jokes about the news media. Obama did it. Biden did it. Clinton did it. Yes, Democrats and Republicans alike have been doing this for decades. Donald Trump isn't new, nor was Donald Trump being extra mean. But what you will hear is that there will be people who, in bad faith, are going to clip the hell out of this, and they're going to tell you that Donald Trump is a dictator because he said so himself. They will misquote this because they love to misquote our president, and this is what they're going to misquote.
My intention to run for a fourth term as president of the United States. I will be doing that. I will be having an official. In fact, I think I have. I won 3 times. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it. Should be easy. I'm getting very good at running for president. No, I won 3 times. Did very well the second time, by the way.
So this is what they're going to lose their minds about. That's the essence of it, is that Donald Trump went on stage at the Correspondents' Dinner. He said, in a mocking and joking manner, knowing full well that many of the news pundits like CNN and MS Now that were in the room with him at that moment have been claiming that Donald Trump is going to seek another run for the presidency in 2028, even though he said emphatically that he won't. He said that it's possible, but he wouldn't do it. And what they're saying is they're going to come out and they're going to say, this is the proof. This is what Donald Trump said. And they're going to tell you it's not a joke, it's the truth, because they want to misdirect you, because Orange Man bad. Fear is important so that you must vote Democrat, because you're afraid of Orange Man bad, aren't you? Well, they hope you are. That's what they've been doing for the last 12 years, is trying to make sure you're terrified of Orange Man bad, so that you give money to the Democratic Party, so that you give power and support to the Democratic Party. It's kind of sad. Now, I think it was pretty funny. For those who are just listening, Donald Trump, he had said, well, I'll run again for the 4th time, which is another reference to the 2020 election, which Donald Trump has consistently said he won. And as time has gone on, we have found more and more and more election irregularities with the 2020 election. And I can't say more than that because this is YouTube and they will bounce my channel. Literally, they may shut down the entire channel if I were to say more than there were election irregularities. even now, 6 years later, even after multiple court cases that found irregularities, even as laws in multiple Democrat run states have been struck down, even as the mail in ballot laws have been restructured to make them more secure, even though we see many election irregularities. And we'll talk about New Jersey and Governor Mickey Sherrill a little bit later in the program and what's going on with New Jersey's election integrity, which we now know is compromised and goes to the claim that elections, especially when run by Democrats, are not very secure. But we will talk about that. But you will hear that. So Donald Trump made the reference to having won 3 presidential elections by his contention, and that he would run for a 4th and win again. Now, this is only to actually get to the left. This was a big gotcha moment. This was just baiting them to try and troll him on this. And you will see the leftists that are going to take this seriously. They're not going to report this honestly. And they're going to say Donald Trump is a dictator. He's going for 2028 and that he'll never give up power. Except this is America, not Nicaragua, which the Democrats won't talk about. They have let that story die. They won't mention that in Nicaragua, the dictator supported by Bernie Sanders in 1985, he has declared that he will be running forever. He ended all elections because socialism always winds up with a dictatorship. It happens every single time. It happened over in Venezuela. It's happening right now in front of your eyes in Nicaragua. It happened in Cuba, North Korea. It's in China. It was in Russia or the old Soviet Union. Every time we see the same pattern. It's just a matter of how much time it takes for this to play out. But socialism always has the same result. And yet they want to blame Orange Man Bad. They want to blame Donald Trump for what the Democrats have supported and seen happen in country after country for decades. It's amazing. But I wanted to play that because I thought that was kind of interesting. Let me move forward to some other news that I think is also kind of important. Now, this is a little bit older. We had been talking about this last week about Zoran Mandami. And I told you he was lying to your face because he's a socialist. And socialists always lie. The only people who lie more than socialists are terrorists. But they always lie to you. Because if they told you the truth, you would reject what they're offering. You would not support socialism, even if it's democratic socialism, which doesn't make a difference. There is no difference in that in any reality. So we see Zoran Mandami had promised. He made an absolute promise. He declared he was going to arrest Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on an ICC UN warrant and called him a war criminal. Well, that's pretty straightforward. He said, I'm going to do it because the law, international law, is bigger than the United States. International law is the most important thing out there. By the way, remember when the United States went into Venezuela and we took their leader, that was on international law too, but he doesn't want to talk about that. But besides that, so he says he has the right, which he does not, and he has the power, which he does not, to arrest the world leader, Benjamin Netanyahu. Whether you like Israel or not, whether you like Netanyahu or not, the question isn't whether you like them. The question is, does a mayor of a city in the United States have the authority and power to dictate United States international policy? That's the question. And the answer to that is no, he doesn't. He never has the power. There is no mayor, no governor in the United States that has the power to arrest a world leader. Only the president and the executive branch of the United States can do that. They're the only ones. And international law isn't real, doesn't exist. It's a stupid idea. It is meant to make third world nations feel like they have some power and some say in the world. It isn't real. It doesn't apply to the United States. It doesn't apply to most of the first world nations in the world. You may not like that. You can say it's unfair, but it is the reality. International law doesn't apply, doesn't exist, especially when applied to the United States. And we told you that last week. We told you that Mandami knew this, as everyone in politics knows this, and that he was lying to your face to get power, to get votes, to get money donated to Democratic Socialists. As it turns out, Mandami has backtracked and said, nope, I'm not going to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. He's not going to do it because he doesn't have the power, because the UN doesn't have the power, because the UN is not the ultimate supreme law of the world or the United States. The Constitution is the law of the United States. The president is in charge of the United States, not the UN. And so Mandami had to turn around. And of course, he blamed this on Donald Trump. He blamed that on US politics. He said this is because of the establishment. He blamed everyone except himself for lying to the public about something that every lawyer, every political pundit, every news agency in the world knew instantly was a lie. Everyone knew he was lying. Everyone knew this was a political stunt, except for the supporters in the Democratic Socialists of America. And now we see the fact that the evidence had come out on July 22nd, 4 days ago. Mandami admitted, I can't do it because international law isn't more important than U.S. law, nor does it give a mayor the right to choose international policy for the United States. It doesn't happen. Doesn't exist. By the way, I would remind many of my friends in the DSA, remember, Zoran Mandami was trying to engineer a illegal meeting between him and Iran, a nation fighting the United States at this moment, a nation that has sworn death to every American citizen simply because women go to work and they can read, and that gays aren't being thrown off of buildings. And he was having he was planning to have a meeting with Iran. And by the way, the people he was looking to meet with also have warrants for their international arrest by the ICC, by the UN. But he wasn't looking to enforce that law. He wasn't looking to enforce that warrant. No, that was okay because they're Islamists. They have the same socialist ideology that we see with Mandami. They're just as much of a bunch of anti-Semites as is Zoran Mandami. And so he was perfectly fine with them going free and warrants for their arrest not happening. But people that Zoran Mandami doesn't like, there you go. Now, to finish up on that thought, I think that John Fetterman, a senator, Democratic senator, who I have often criticized on this program, and I will continue to do so, he is still unfit to hold the seat of a senator. He is mentally disabled. That is a medical fact, and he should not. But he has been moving more and more towards the center, not to the right. He's moving towards the center where most Americans are. He went from being a leftist to being a centrist, which is not the same thing as becoming part of the right. He is not. He votes 85%, maybe 90% of the time with the Democratic Party. 15% of the time, he votes centrist, which makes him a Democrat, makes him a leftist Democrat at that. But that being said, John Fetterman said a great thing about Mandami. You're a mayor. Be a mayor. Fix the potholes, collect the garbage, make sure the subway runs without being flooded every time it rains. Every time we have a drizzle, the subway is flooded. Fix the city and shut up about international politics. It's not your job. It's above the pay grade of the mayor of New York City. John Fetterman was right. I just got to give it to him. He was absolutely 1,000% correct. Now, and if anyone thinks that I'm wrong, if you think that John Fetterman was wrong in his comments about Zoran Mandami, if you think that Zoran Mandami was justified in trying to break international law for the United States, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. I'm happy to hear why you think that. But I don't see it. I just don't see it. Now, oh God, why is this not coming up? There we go. I also wanted to bring up. No. Okay. Sorry. My computer's running slow. So I wanted to bring up that there was some additional news, which is kind of international, kind of national. And a lot of people have glossed this over, and you have seen a ton of left-leaning, leftist individuals, especially the socialists, the DSA, have been lying online, saying that the United States has merged its military with Israel, that Israel is now in control of the United States military. That is a lie. That is not true. That is completely made up. It is fear-mongering meant to try and cause you to be upset with Donald Trump and to punish Republicans in the midterm elections. That's all this is. I know. I'll take him out shortly. Yes. Sorry, just getting news about my dog. Sorry about that, folks. Where did I? So I was going to say, let me finish this up. You've been told that the United States military is merging with the Israeli military under the NDAA, which is our authorization and funding for the United States military and national defense. That's what you've been told. That's not what happened. There is a bill, and it was approved, along with the authorization of funding for our national defense, that says that the United States would integrate and work with Israel. Now, there are 22 other nations, including England and much of the European Union, that the United States has the same exact deal with. This isn't new. This isn't something shocking. This isn't a Trump thing or a Republican thing. This is something that we have seen over and over and over again. The United States, any nation that are our deep allies, that are in hot zones around the world, and many who are part of NATO, we work with them anyway, just to take care of these simple problems, to take care of coordinating with our allies better, and also to use some of their techniques and their advances and their technology to integrate into the United States to make us a more efficient fighting force. That's what the NDAA does. It's actually, if you look it up, the National Defense Authorization Act, and of 2027, and if you look up Section 219, that's where you will find this. And what you will not find, as confirmed by Newsweek, this isn't right-wing, this isn't conservative, it's not Republican or MAGA, this is the news, into the centrist news, and they will tell you themselves, the United States did not integrate and absorb the Israeli military, nor did the Israeli military take over the United States military. Anyone who tells you that is lying to your face because they are fear-mongering. They have a political agenda. They want you to vote Democrat. It is a lie. Pure, simple, direct. That's it. It's just that simple, folks. And if you bother to actually look it up, which these fearmongers count on you not doing, then you will see the truth there too. But the Democrats who are running for election, pundits, and the leftists like the DSA, they're counting on the fact you're just going to read the headline and go, the United States integrated with Israel. Israel's in charge of the U.S. military. We're now the dogs of Israel because Israel somehow is in control of the United States and President Trump. That is just anti-Semitic lies. It just is. I know. I heard. So, oh yeah, I know. So, I wanted to bring that up. Now, you may have heard in the background that I was just getting a message from my family about my dog, who, by the way, as some of you may know, he's 15 years old. He's been having some problems recently, and we've been taking him to the vet, and he's been feeling ill, which he's 15. That does happen, but he's in decent health. But as a result of that, he's been on some medications, and he's been back and forth. I'm getting a message that he's not feeling well at this moment. There's something going on. So I'm going to jump over and I'm going to take care of that. I know it is just after we just started within the first half hour. We have a lot to talk about, but I do need to take care of my dog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to take a quick break to check out my dog, maybe to walk him around, make sure that he's okay, and then we'll come back to the program. I know it's way early. Sorry, it's in the first half hour, but he isn't feeling well. So I want to make sure I take care of that. So with that said, I will be back as soon as I can. And thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is December 2nd, approximately 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm up this early because something was bothering, something that I wanted to share with you. Just a couple of days ago, I received a poll from YouGov on socialism. How popular is socialism in the United States? Which made me have a question. What is the difference between what most people think of as socialism and progressivism? What is the impact of social and progressive policies on the United States, not just domestically, but around the world? I think this is an important issue to discuss as we go forward into 2023, and we will have a stagnating government that may not be able to get to accomplish many of the goals we would all like to see done. So we're going to address this a little bit in just a moment, but before we get started, I do want to mention, if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we welcome you and we thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to get your tweets, your chats, and your phone calls from anywhere in the world to tell us what you think about the issues that are affecting us all around the world. Because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech. It is not just for Americans. You should be able to question your government and the issues that are affecting us all. And so we hope you will join us, even if your government does not agree, even if the internet overlords aren't happy about it. We hope you will join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. to discuss whatever it is that you think is important. So what has kept me up in the morning? The question is socialism, which actually brings up another question altogether. What's the difference between progressivism and socialism today? Now, there's a lot we can get into that, but I want to stick to a general view of this and what we can see easily in the news media. And to be able to do that, the first thing I want to do is go backwards in time a little bit, back to 2008. You may remember this in 2008.
It's been a long time coming, but tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
Change is coming to America. It's interesting that he said that, because it's what he didn't say that I think is very important. And we spoke about it then, and we've spoken about it since. Change into what? President Obama had his slogan, transform America. Transform America into what? It's a very big question. You're going to change. What are you changing? What are you changing into? What are we transforming into? It's not enough to say we're going to change things. You have to say, what are you changing, and what is the next thing? What is the outcome? What is it that you will change to? Because if you're changing from a Ferrari into a Yugo, that's not a positive change. If you're going from a rich and powerful nation to a third world nation, that's not a positive change. Now, people were taken at the time by the emotion, but we've long since had that emotion come and go. Was it worth it? Well, a lot of people would say no. Now, one of the things many people said at the time as well was that this was socialism coming into America, that Barack Obama was a socialist. In fact, it was on ABC News, May 5th of 2010, as President Obama was putting the finishing touches on Obamacare, the American Care Act, a piece of legislation that would place the government in charge of health care for millions, tens of millions of Americans, that would allow the government to decide what health care you could or could not have, what you are going to pay for, and how you are going to be treated. I know you may recall that President Obama said for many years, repeatedly, that don't worry, you'll be able to keep your doctor with Obamacare. And then in 2013, we learned that was the lie of the year. It wasn't true. Even in 2010, so many people thought that Obamacare was socialist that ABC News had to go out and tell you that it isn't a bad thing, that it wasn't negative to say that President Obama is a socialist. In fact, they said, calling President Obama a socialist may not carry the punch some of his opponents had hoped for, given a new poll that found Americans are, quote, not so negative, end quote, about the word, and young people have essentially the same feelings about socialism as they do the word capitalism. It's interesting. They said further, young people, the survey found, are more positive about socialism and more negative about capitalism than our older Americans. This is a Pew Research poll. And in that poll, they found overall 29% of respondents say they have a positive reaction to the word socialism, while 59% react negatively. Well, that's a huge statement there. That's a lot of Americans. Almost a third of Americans, almost a third, especially the youth. The youngest Americans were the most interested. Those under 30 had the strongest reaction to the idea of socialism. Where would they get that idea from? Haven't our schools been all about progressivism? Haven't they been about the liberal ideas taught by their teachers, their colleges? And quite honestly, there really isn't much of a difference between being a Democrat, being a progressive, and being a socialist. In fact, we now have many people who are democratic socialists, mixing this line even more so. Some of them are quite famous. In fact, when we look over the list of, just a small list of some of those best known democratic socialists, well, that would be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib. Now, you may say, well, they're democratic socialists, but I thought Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, isn't she a progressive? Bernie Sanders, isn't he a self-avowed communist? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But the fact is, they are. You're not wrong. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a democratic socialist. Rashida Tlaib is a democratic socialist. They are also progressives. And they are also socialists. Just like Bernie Sanders, who's a self-avowed communist. There is no real functional difference. It is the wording that is used at any given moment to allow them to do well. In fact, we see this from, well, no other than AOC herself. Going by the June 1st, 2018 interview on Politico, Ocasio-Cortez discusses Democratic Socialist label. And she says in this article, It's part of what I am. It's not all of what I am, she said on Meet the Press for NBC. And I don't think that's a very important distinction. So she's a democratic socialist. She is a Democrat. She is a progressive. These are all interchangeable terms. She's all of the above, all at the same time. And she's not the only one. In fact, if we look at the list of Democratic Socialists of America, not including the Ithaca chapter that believes in violence, but just in general, we'll see that there's Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman. There's a lot of people. There used to be, John Conyers used to be part of this. Individuals that were considered Democrats or are often considered progressives. They're in fact socialists as well. In fact, this term is so interchangeable, you wouldn't be able to identify who is who. Looking at the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is chaired by Representative Jayapal, you see many, many interesting names. Ilhan Omar pops up. You know who she is. Well, what about Barbara Lee or Jamie Raskin? Sheila Jackson Lee, someone I know many people. She's been around for a long time in politics. You would think she's a Democrat. No, she's actually a progressive. Rashida Tlaib, as we had mentioned before. But there are more people. Cori Bush, as we've mentioned before. Ro Khanna, Mark Takano, yet another name that you've probably heard before. Of course, Jamal Bowman, but there goes Bernie Sanders, also on that progressive listing. And then we go into the House members, including Karen Bass, even Mr. Hakeem Jeffries of New York, who is now going to be the minority leader for the Democrat Party in 2023, replacing Nancy Pelosi. Hakeem Jeffries is a progressive. He is also in the Democratic Party. See, the party is the big umbrella, and these are individuals inside that umbrella who have different factions that they believe in. There are different slivers of that. The smallest sliver may in fact be communists and or socialists, but progressives, which make up about roughly 7% of the Democratic Party, they're the ones in control. Hakeem Jeffries is now going to lead the party, but he's leading it in a progressive direction. Is it going as far as the Democratic Socialists would like? Probably not. But it's further to the left than the average Democrat has always been. The pendulum for Democrats is swinging further and further to the left, which brings us closer and closer to socialism and communism at every single step. Now, I'm not going to say that this is like being part of the Chinese Communist Party. No, I'm not saying that that's where Democrats have gone yet. The Communist Party, which in its first iterations in 1921, well, it was a revolution and a nationalist party and a socialist party. And let us not forget that most of the nations that have used communism, have moved towards communism, well, they're all socialists. Let's see, the USSR, otherwise known as the Soviet Union by most people, when it existed, it was actually the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. There is no difference. While definitions may be somewhat different, they are effectively the same thing. In fact, when we take a look, we know that BLM was created with the idea of socialism, of communism. Patrisse Cullors has already admitted that she created this, that she is a communist, and that she created BLM to encourage more black people to become socialists and progressives. And we've seen from Resilience, a left-leaning source, which is telling us today's progressive movements must learn from BLM and join together and become more progressive. And in fact, going through their, literature, they tell us that progressive social movements operating in the United States today are all the same. That people fighting for climate justice, peace, gun control, the full freedom of people of color, immigrants, women, LGBTQ, AI+, economic equality, civil liberties, educational opportunity. Did you notice every single one of these issues is something that Democrats are championing and saying that they are leading the way on this, that these are all progressive ideals that are being taught in our colleges? This is all socialist. They're interchangeable. And they use whatever term is the most popular at any given moment to be able to get a better reaction. Because it's definitely not the classic sense of what a progressive is. In fact, if we look at the definition under Merriam-Webster, a progressive is one believing in moderate political change and especially social improvement by governmental action. There is nothing that is moderate about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Jamal Bowman, or Hakeem Jeffries. These are not moderates. These are fringe far-left elements in our government. We're looking to have extreme change. Even Barack Obama was not a moderate political change. Or to quote Barack Obama, transforming America, fundamentally transforming America. That is what the modern progressive is. Not what they're defined as. This is how they are moving forward. And there is no difference in their actions between progressive or socialist or communist because they're all interchangeable. And we have seen that their interactions have led in many cases, going back 3 years, we saw that they would go onto college campuses and mob individuals who disagreed with them. Remember at Binghamton University when 200 members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, which is also known as PLOT, a far-left socialist progressive organization closely tied to the local Democratic Party, that they went out and they mobbed 3 conservative students at Binghamton University because they didn't like what they were saying. They threatened them. They tried to intimidate them. It made national news. And that's why, even at this moment, Binghamton University is under an investigation by the Department of Education. They are under lawsuits that are still continuing to move forward, even as we speak. While the rest of the news media has forgotten about this, this case is still going forward, and we are still following it. This is what progressive and socialism is. And I think that's important to understand when we look at the poll. What is socialism? Well, socialism in America today, progressivism in America today are interchangeable. They are just merely different words meaning the same idea for political movements. And while socialism may be gaining some positives in terms of the word, progressive is far more acceptable. Just like liberal back in the 1970s was far more acceptable than socialist or communist. The title is changing, but the underlying themes and thoughts and ideologies are not. And they result in the same kind of effect. But we are seeing this movement. Now, you can go to Data for Progress, which is a left-leaning source talking about the positives of socialism and progressivism, and you can see that the younger you get, the more positive the view of socialism is. Over and over again, going from the silent generation, World War II, to the baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and to Gen Z, we are seeing this trend towards socialism being a positive idea, most often because it's used as progressivism. That we're being told that this is the progressive idea. And in case you think I'm misunderstanding that, this same source, this is Data for Progress, their mission, Data for Progress, is a progressive think tank. The progressive think tank are the ones who are telling you that socialism is a positive and that it is gaining strength. Again, that's their program. That's their ideology. This is the progressive think tank. There is no functional difference. Looking at, this is a report from 2020. This is from the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. And they were doing an annual poll. This was the 5th annual poll of U.S. attitudes towards socialism, communism, and collectivism, which are all the forms of communism, different words, but still the same ideas. And what they found was that 40% of Americans at that time in 2020 had a favorable view of socialism, up from 36% in 2019. 2019 was the year that the mob at Binghamton University attacked 3 students for just being conservatives and expressing their voices. Generation Z's favorability is 49%, up 9% from 2019. Think about that. In 2008, Barack Obama, in 2010, in 2010, according to ABC News, the favoritism of socialism was at 29%. By 9 years later, it was at 49% amongst Gen Z and 40% for the nation, almost doubling itself. That is an incredible increase. Was that the change that President Obama was promising us? Was that the fundamental transformation of America that he was talking about ushering in? A majority of Democratic voters now prefer socialism to capitalism. Well, why wouldn't they? Because they've now been told for over a decade, almost 2 decades, maybe even more, they've been told consistently socialism is being part of the Democratic Party, is part of being progressive. They are interchangeable. They are all the same thing. And we saw this in August of 2021. Democratic voters find it's all the same thing. The poll taken between August 7th and 10th showed that 59% of registered Democratic voters who participated had a positive view of socialism compared to 49% who felt that way about capitalism. Well, think about it. We've heard from BLM, Antifa. We've heard from the far left, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar. We've been hearing from the squad. We've been told how capitalism is a negative thing. We've heard that from Nancy Pelosi. We've heard that from Chuck Schumer. Remember, Obama said, well, you didn't build that. The government built that. They tried to take away everything you have done and said the government did it instead. The government is more important. And at the end of the day, what is socialism? What is progressivism? What is communism? It is the state, the government, having more power than you. It is the state being able to control both businesses and individual lives, and you have less and less freedom and ability to choose for yourself. That is essentially what it comes down to. Now, here, even in 2022, we can say socialism has gone down a little bit to 36%, but so has capitalism. The overall view from Pew Research shows that 57% of those who have taken the poll found capitalism to be a positive term, while 36% had a positive impression of the word socialism. Both have reduced. That's not a positive for anyone. Most importantly, though, those who are 18 to 29 voters, the youth who just came out of our colleges, just came out of our high schools, 44% found that socialism is a positive term. It is a positive ideology. Only 40% of those same 18 to 29-year-olds had a positive view of capitalism. But it should scare you that we have so many more young people, and that has been increasing over time, and we see no reason why that's going to stop. And as we said, Hakeem Jeffries is part of the reason why this isn't going to stop. He is now the minority leader in 2023 of the Democratic Party. A progressive is in charge of the Democratic Party. He is a splinter faction of the party. If you go out and ask your average American walking down the street, some 30-40% of Americans are Democrats, some 30-40% of Americans are Republican. If you ask your average rank and file Democrat, are you a progressive? They would say no. If you look at their leadership, it is. They are progressives, whether they've told the Democrats that or not. Hakeem Jeffries, when he's going for election, he's going on the thought that he is a Democrat. He's on the Democratic ticket, but he's a progressive. And progressives promote socialism. I know some people are going to say, well, Hakeem Jeffries isn't that bad. I mean, look at this. He's the guy who said that Tara Reid, who accused Joe Biden of sexual assault, that this needs to be investigated. Yeah, he said that in the past. He hasn't said a word about it now. He has no follow-up on that. That was just political maneuvering. It was the popular thing to say when Me Too was the issue at the time. This is now the man who is in charge of the Democratic Party in Congress. He's going to be leading the House of Representatives for Democrats, and his policies, his ideas that he is putting forth are so repugnant to Democrats that nothing has a projected success rate. Look at this. 5 Democrats support him, 5 co-sponsors, 17 co-sponsors. There's 435 members, voting members of Congress. Over 200 at this moment, well over 200 at this moment, are Democrats. He has nothing. There is virtually no bill that he has ever put forth since 2013 that has had widespread acceptance amongst Democrats. Now, I've said all of that to bring us to, and I thank you for staying with me to understand this fundamental thing. We saw that President Barack Obama is a progressive. He has progressive ideology. He has pushed that forward. He learned that progressive ideology from back in the 60s, his teachers, Bill Ayers, individuals who are radical leftists. And he brought that idea that capitalism is bad and to transform America from a capitalist society into a socialist one. He brought that into America. He transformed America. And through that transformation, he invited the youth of America to join him on a path towards progressivism and socialism. And he helped to support the fledgling BLM in 2015 to make it what it is today and having the capability to destroy our cities across America in 2020 as they did. So that's important to understand that that's where we're going. That's where we've been. And this is the trend that we are continuing to see with Hakeem Jeffries going forward. Why is this a big deal? Let me take you to this. This is what got me here, that made me want to talk about this. This is the YouGov poll that came out on the 30th of November. And in taking this poll, we see that 60% of people said that they believe and that they found capitalism to be a positive. Only 24% had a more positive view of socialism. That doesn't match the numbers that Pew is giving us. That doesn't match the numbers we've seen even during the time of Barack Obama, as reported by ABC News, but it is an online poll, and YouGov polls tend to skew to the left more often than not. So maybe this wasn't popular, or maybe the time I took it was too early. We don't know. But according to the poll, these are some of the politicians that the majority tend to believe are socialists. Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, the same list of individuals that I've already shown you that already have admitted they are progressives and they are socialists. Now, one of the things about this poll that I thought was so interesting that needs to be discussed is the poll says, and in your opinion, would adopting more socialist policies create more or less poverty in the United States? I believe 53% of the people who took the poll at the time said it's going to create more poverty. The majority of Americans tend to agree with that. Given the examples we've seen in Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, China, the former Soviet Union, look around the world, look at your actual socialist nations, your progressive nations, and the more progressive they become, the more impoverished the people are, the more oppressive the government is. All right, we're going to stop right there. I am back. That's right. All right. Bear with me. There we go. All right, everyone. I'm back. Sorry about I had to take care of my puppy. I hope everyone can understand. My dog, 15 years old. He has an enlarged heart. He has an enlarged liver, and he's got Cushing's disease. So he's getting on in his age, and he's having some difficulties. So I got to take care of him. I'm not Hassan Piker. I'm not going to put an electric collar on my dog and force him to spend the entire show laying down next to me, especially on camera, just so I can get the sympathy points, which is something that we see that Hassan Piker has done. And to an extent, it's something that Bruce Blakeman has done recently. Yes, Bruce Blakeman running for governor of New York, the Republican candidate, and he actually was holding a small puppy hostage for one of his videos, which I did a short video on, showing that he's holding the puppy hostage as he's giving his pitch to get more money so he can win second place in New York. It's kind of sad, and it's very upsetting. But I don't do that. I don't use my dog for sympathy points. I don't use him to try and put him on screen and put an electric collar on him. Hassan Piker is evil, if for no other reason than because of the abuse that he does to his dog, his pet, his part of his family. He abuses that dog for his show to make brownie points, to get sympathy from people. And it's just sickening. And if nothing else, he should have been arrested for abusing his pet, Hassan Piker. And he should be in jail for that. He really should. I don't think anyone who loves dogs would disagree with that. But again, I thank my audience for indulging me as I took care of my dog, because he is very important to me. Let me catch up with any comments that may have happened while I was, oh my God, there was a bunch of comments. I love you guys. Filling up the space while I was gone. Fantastic. So Daily Course is here with us. Israel is real. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but okay. Well, yeah, Israel is a real country, and they aren't in charge of the United States. As I covered, and also Newsweek, the NDAA is not putting the United States beholden to Israel or to their military objectives. There are 22 other countries, including NATO, EU, Britain, that we have similar types of agreements. And it's because they either have extra technology or they use Patriot missiles. They use some of our tanks and some of our technology. And for them to be able to do that, they want to fly the F-16s or F-35s, then they must have an agreement with the United States. It is standard. And Israel is doing nothing different. And that agreement is nothing different. But there are people online who will blow that up and try and make you think, oh my God, the United States has been subverted or overthrown or in control of Israel. It's ridiculous. It's just silly. But thank you for the comment, Daily Course. Okay. So let's see. Bronner is not a fan of Israel. He says, screw Israel. They already proved they are willing to steal our nuke technology. Why steal it now when we'll just give it to them? I don't know that they stole it. I think they also had agreements for it, but whatever. That really doesn't address what's going on right now. Why are we denying? And why are we denying Iran the capability of nukes? Because they're fanatics. They're religious zealot fanatics whose religion tells them to kill anyone who does not convert. That is the fanatical form of Islam that is followed by the Ayatollah and his followers, the IRGC in particular. They believe that if you do not convert of your own free will and you are not forced to convert, then you must be killed. And that's what we see with the IRGC. That's what we see with the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, as well as Iran proper. That's what they believe. That's what they do. So why would we give nukes to someone who is guaranteed for 47 years, and their only daily statement is they want to destroy America? That's the left and the right. In fact, the left more than the right, because the left believes in equality for women, because the left believes in LGB alphabet, and they really, the fanatics in Iran that run the government, they really believe that it's evil, and they would destroy the left in a heartbeat nuclears for Iran. Are you out of your mind? They'll throw you off of buildings. It's just silly. So that's why we don't want them to have nukes, because they're insane and they believe that dying will get them into heaven. It's part of the reason why the IRGC continues to fight and has escalated the conflict with the Strait of Hormuz and with Iran, between the United States and Iran, is because they believe that if they die defending their belief, their religion, that they go to heaven. They have no reason to stop fighting because they don't care about having international trade. They don't care about economics. They don't care about geopolitics. They care about their religion. They are religious fanatics, and they are willing to die for that religion. That's why they believe and teach people to be suicide bombers, to go into foreign countries or their own country and to blow themselves up, killing women and children. That's the mentality. That's what they do. That's why we don't want them having a nuke, because they are insane. I think that's pretty straightforward. We have a $2 super chat coming from Phil. Thank you, Phil. That's really helpful. Phil says, tribute for Khan, knick-knack, paddywhack, give the dog a bone. I will give him a cookie a little bit later. He is feeling better that we went out and walked, although it's about 85 degrees and very sunny. So he's a little tired. I think he's going to sleep now. Bill also mentions that Tim Walz is a war hero in his own mind. That is true. He is, in his own mind, a war hero. Stolen valor. I never liked the guy. I like him even less. And what he did now in Minnesota is even worse. We'll be getting to that in one moment when we get back to the show proper. Let's see. Phil likes it when we play the old clips. It's a time capsule. Yeah, that video you saw when I was taking care of my dog, that was from 2022. So that was just 4 years ago. And it's very interesting to see how much things have changed in our politics in just 4 years. That's why I play that. And it also references what's going on right now with the DSA, with the growing takeover of the Democratic Party by the socialist movement, the growth of socialism in Harvard and Columbia, in our colleges, and affecting our kids. And God, it's helping. The reach on our kids is so insane. We will be talking a little bit later in the program about the latest program coming from the University of Minnesota that is meant purely to indoctrinate our kids, and it will hurt America. And I will explain all of that in just a little bit. Let me go on with some of the other comments. Phil's talking about making a burger later because keto. He likes keto. Let's see. Guys are talking about food. Father's Day. Hang on. I'm just catching up on some comments here. Chuck was back with us for a little bit. Hal's with us. What's Hal got to say? Chuck, don't close up shop. Just refocus on shorter content and build the channel up, then go for lives and interviews. That doesn't really work, Hal. Again, it's very interesting and a bit complicated. For a lot of channels, shorter content works. For a lot of channels, live content is what they do primarily. It depends on the audience that you're looking to get. And it's just difficult. And there's a lot of competition out there. And there's no get rich quick scheme. It's just difficult. Let's see. And people are encouraging Chuck and the Opinion Guy channel and the Monday Opinion podcast roundtable to continue. So we'll see if that works out, folks. If Chuck wants to do it more, I'll do it. If he doesn't, I respect that as well. Hey, Alabama Barbie's with us as well. So I'm glad to see that. And Bronner mentions that he too hates the abuse of animals that we see from Hassan Piker. And again, I don't understand why Hassan Piker's audience gives him a pass on that. We have the video. We know that he has a shock collar on his dog. He forces his dog to spend 8 hours sitting on the same mat in the same corner without the capability of moving. We have video on this. Why has he not been arrested? Why does his audience continue to watch him as he abuses an animal on screen? I do not understand it. It makes no sense to me. But I will never do that. I do not do that on this channel. So, okay, so we kind of caught up on some of the comments there. Thank you guys for being here with me and being patient. I wanted to get back to, and we had just left off talking about the NDAA with Israel and the United States. And again, we are debunking the story that will be coming out. And again, this is coming from Newsweek and any credible news agency, so not CNN, most likely not from MS Now, but any credible news agency will tell you this was not a takeover by Israel over the United States. Anyone who says that is a liar. So, moving on, I did want to move on to the next thing, which is talking about what's going on in Iran with the United States. Now, you may have seen this video. We had gone 13 days in a row since Iran, the IRGC, a split within Iran, the IRGC, which is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, they are the ones responsible for teaching the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, to teach them how to be terrorists. And they fund the terrorists directly. That's part of the Iranian recognized government, which would be the Ayatollah and the mullahs. The IRGC wanted to continue to fight the United States. There's a couple of reasons for this. One of them is because they're religious fanatics. They believe if they die, they go to heaven. So that in and of itself is enough reason for them to continue to fight. Another reason why they continue to fight is, as we said, they despise the LGBT alphabet community. The leader of Iran at this time, the latest, the third Ayatollah, who is the son of the second Ayatollah, is stated internationally, it is believed that he is gay. Now, that is a mortal sin in the eyes of the followers of the original Ayatollah. So the IRGC do not have respect for the current Ayatollah. But they can't come out and openly say that because that would start a civil war. But that means that they're not inclined to respect when he and the mullahs and the main government of Iran, the recognized government of Iran, when they're making a deal with America, the great devil, well, they see that as being just a disgrace, a slap in the face of their religion. And so they have been fighting against that, and they have been causing the difficulties. 2 weeks ago, the IRGC was responsible for attacking ships going through the Strait of Hormuz and trying to close it back up. Well, that's restarted the fighting. It was started by Iran and the IRGC. The United States reacted to that. Then, of course, Iran started attacking all of their neighbors. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, the Oman. They started Syria. They were attacking all across the Middle East, attacking civilians. Yes, they attacked some American bases like in Jordan, but they primarily were attacking civilians in their cities. And we've gone over the news reports from credible international news agencies covering this. Not talked about much here in the United States because they want to push the idea of Orange Man bad, but it is an international fact. Iran has been targeting civilians because they're terrorists. The government of Iran are terrorists, and that's what they do. They attack civilians. To punish the rest of the Middle East for not attacking the United States when Iran is attacking the United States. Again, you must obey the Ayatollah. You must obey the way that they look at Islam in the IRGC. And if you don't, well, then you are the problem and you must be punished. And that, therefore, they will attack innocent civilians in other countries that have nothing to do with any of this. And so that's why we've seen this go on. Now, the IRGC finally realizing that they're not winning. They're not converting people. And in fact, now that the United States is looking to make a deal with Saudi Arabia to allow Saudi Arabia to develop nuclear power, which many feel is a thinly veiled way for the United States to help Saudi Arabia become a nuclear power. Whether they already are or not is a different question. And you will hear various pundits that will say, well, Saudi Arabia, Israel, a couple of the Middle Eastern nations already are nuclear powers. They just don't admit it. Some will say that. But regardless of that, some more and more credible sources will tend to say that the United States making a deal to create nuclear power plants in Saudi Arabia is a backdoor way of allowing them to develop nuclear weapons programs without making any waves internationally. It could be slipped in with some of the technology for developing the power plants, which is how Iran initially started to develop their nuclear weapon ambitions. They did that through the guise of nuclear power plants. And then they just kept enriching the uranium beyond the needs of the nuclear power plant. And it was harder to notice because it was hidden from the public eye. So this is what the thought is. Now, Iran, which has had several wars with Saudi Arabia in the past, they don't like each other at all. They do not believe in the same form of Islam as each other, and they despise the other nation for the way that they believe in Islam. So these people do not like each other, do not get along. They've had previous wars. And now with the threat of the United States backing up the neighbor of Iran, Saudi Arabia, and helping them to fast track a nuclear program, that is an existential threat to Iran. The best thing that Iran could do, and I think the IRGC is starting to understand that, is rather than continuing to fight in a military battle that they cannot win, if the United States actually unleashed the full might of our military on Iran, Iran would lose, and it would be absolutely devastated. There is no one in the world who disputes that. If the United States were to go whole hog against Iran, we would decimate them. It would take some time, but it would be absolute decimation. It would destroy the nation forever. But the IRGC is starting to look at, well, not only would they have to face the United States, in the northeast, there are the Kurds who are in Syria, and those Kurds are looking to make incursions and have been invading in northeast Iran because the Kurds hate Iran and the religious government of Iran just as much as anyone else in the world, perhaps even more. So they've been invading into the northeast of Iran. At the same time, now to the to the east of Iran, you're looking at Saudi Arabia, who also have a very large military, a very strong military, and now having the support of the United States for nuclear weapons. That is sandwiching Iran in a way that could end their existence forever. And not because of the United States per se, but because of their neighbors. And that could eliminate the nation. So they're looking at being more peaceful is probably more in line with what they need as a nation. Hang on one second, folks. Yeah.
He won't stop barking. I told him no food. I think he has to go back out, and then he came running in here when I asked him if he had to go outside.
I don't think he needs to go out. I think he wants food.
No, he can't.
He's licking his lips.
No, that's because he's nauseous. He has to go outside. He's not
Shouldn't.
licking his lips. He's flicking his tongue, and there's a difference. He has to go outside.
Hang on one second, folks.
Yeah, I know.
No, he doesn't.
He came running in here when I asked him. He has been crying and.
Yeah, that's because he wants food.
That's not it. No. He has to go outside.
We'll see.
He has to go
Okay,
outside.
we'll see. So I wanted to show you this video, folks. This is what happened this weekend. And what you see is that the United States has once again shut down any kind of trade with Iraq. We have blockaded Iraq. Now, a lot of people don't understand why we've done that. And when you see ships try and break that, it's going to be you can see that U.S. forces are actively going on board any ship that tries to break the blockade. Only 2 have tried to do so. Well, actually 13. Only 2 ships where they said no, they wouldn't turn away, they would not back off. And the United States went in, took out their engines, and no one was killed, but we took out the ship. It was just that simple. It was just that simple. We have effectively done this. Now, why did we blockade them? Because China is deeply involved in this conflict. China buys about 85% of all the oil coming out of Iran. And Iran has continued to try to trade with China using Pakistan as the mediary to get oil either directly to through cargo ships, tankers, to China, or going overland through Pakistan, which is a benefit for Pakistan in terms of money, but it's also good for China because they need the oil for their navy to dominate the Southeast Asian waterways. And that's part of their plan with Taiwan and putting pressure on Japan, which is why Japan created their military, the first military they've had since 1945. So this is all interrelated. This is why it's called geopolitics. It's not about just one nation. It's a domino effect. It affects many nations. And so we're putting pressure on China, which has been supporting Iran both before and after this conflict. And that is why this is very important. Again, this is putting a stranglehold on Iran. Their inflation has gone up by 200%. And we are putting pressure on the government. Hopefully, the Iranian people will rise up and take over their government, take back their government, and install something different. I don't know what, but anything but the theocratic government that they have right now. That is what would be hoped for, to take away the power of the IRGC. But as much as we want that to happen, who knows? Now, again, what we see is that the Houthis, who are the puppets of Iran, they are the puppets of the IRGC. They get their funding, their missiles, their drones from Iran. Iran cannot directly attack, or more directly attack, the military of Saudi Arabia. They have tried to bomb some of the airports and some of the cities with civilians, but they blame that on the United States because the United States is taking out many of the missiles and drones of the IRGC. So to punish America, they will attack America's allies in the Middle East, but it's considered retaliation, so it's not the start of a new war. They can't really do that, and they can't constantly punish or terrorize the people of Saudi Arabia. If they were to do that, that would be a declaration of war, and Saudi Arabia would join with the Kurds in the Northeast and the United States, and Iran would be caught in a pincer, a three-way pincer move. They would not be able to survive. So rather than actually directly attack, they're using the Houthis, who are terrorists, trained by the IRGC. They're the same thing as Hamas, the same thing as Hezbollah, and they are using them to attack any ship in the Red Sea, as well as to attack Saudi Arabia to punish them. That's what's going on right now. That's why you see that there is now new activity by the Houthis in support of Iran against Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea. What does this mean for you? Very simple. Not much. It's for American citizens, it just means that we're looking at $4, $4.50 gas. Not a big difference than what we have seen previously. It doesn't really have a major impact on the way of life. We've already been going through 4 months of actual conflict, active, aggressive conflict. It doesn't really change that scenario for the United States. But it also isn't a forever war. I know a lot of people look at it that way. That's their fear of a forever war. That's their fear of a president who doesn't have a plan. There is, in fact, a plan. It may not be well communicated. I will agree with that. But there is a plan. Most of that plan, or a large part of it, is to have regime change in Iran, if we cannot get the regime change to defang the IRGC. And if we, and that is one of the key things, and also as a result of that, opening up the Strait of Hormuz forever. That is what we are looking at doing. There is a lot that affects the future. People are looking at this far too short term. When you hear most of the pundits and news media and they're talking about this is going to go on forever, there's a big difference between a 6-month war and a war that lasts 20 years. There's a big difference for having an objective. We aren't going after Osama bin Laden. We're actually going after the government of Iran. We're not fighting a terrorist cell. We're fighting a nation. There is a very defined difference between the two, and there are clear-cut ways to get answers to that, as opposed to, well, we're tracking down this cell of Al-Qaeda. We have no idea where they are. They're somewhere in the country of Pakistan. We have no idea. They're in a cave somewhere. That's a lot harder to do than to actually fight a government with infrastructure, with personnel, with infrastructure. It's a lot harder. So there's a big difference between that. But I think it's important to see that the Houthis have been pulled in. They have been demanded to join into this conflict with the IRGC, something that was not done in the prior 4 months. I think that's an act of desperation. I believe that the IRGC is at the end of its ropes. They are not breaking the Middle Eastern collective will against Iran. No one is defecting. Countries that support the United States continue to support the United States. They are against Iran completely, and no one is coming to bail them out. That's something I think that they thought would change. It is not. The election is not turning out to be as much of a factor in the favor of Iran as they had hoped. They had thought that perhaps they could fight the political war since they can't win the economic war and they cannot win the military war against the United States. They were trying to get the political war to get Republicans to lose the midterm elections. That doesn't seem likely. We've already seen the impact of this war for 4 months. Another 1 or 2 months is not changing the election. We've lost 16 soldiers or members of our military in this conflict. 16 is not 5,000. There's a massive difference as compared to Iraq or and some of the other conflicts, Afghanistan, other conflicts that other presidents have created for the United States. This isn't the same. 16 is nowhere near the threshold to be on the mind of every American. It's not. It's not on the threshold of making people think that there is a forever war. It's not. So that isn't working. And the war continuing isn't adding pressure onto Republicans. There is a pressure that is being put onto Republicans in the midterm elections. And even with that pressure for 4 months, with the energy inflation going up, even with all of that having existed for 4 months, Republicans are at this moment plus 3 seats. That means they're going to win the House by 3. They will maintain by at least 51 seats the control over the Senate. Republicans are weathering the storm. Democrats cannot and are not taking political advantage. The IRGC, Iran, believed that that would flip and that they would be then able to force Donald Trump to switch strategies. It isn't working for them. So I think that's a big thing that we can see there. Again, not everyone will agree with every aspect of what I'm saying, but again, this is why I think it's a multi-pronged, multi-year approach, which deals with the already existing animosities within the Middle East. It's taking advantage of our allies in the Middle East as much as we can trust them anyway. The only true ally we have is, in fact, Israel. But the positive agreements that we have with some of these Middle Eastern nations like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, well, using what advantage we can to put pressure on Iran, which is not political, but it is military. The political conflict is growing within Iran between the IRGC and the Ayatollah and the mullahs. That is their internal battle, and we will see how that will resolve itself. I expect that there will be a civil war, which has nothing to do with the United States. That was always going to happen when they had a gay Ayatollah, if the rumors are correct, a gay Ayatollah being in charge of Iran, and the IRGC with their fanatical views of Islam would never work together. That has always been a recipe for a civil war in Iran, and that will happen regardless of the United States, Saudi Arabia, anyone in the Middle East. It has nothing to do with anything except their fanatical view. It cannot exist in their worldview. They're struggling with the idea he's the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, the supreme religious leader, but also he's gay, so you should throw him off of a building. They don't know how to resolve that yet. And that's part of their conflict. And so the answer is, well, fight against the United States and die against the United States, and you go to heaven so you don't have to figure out whether you throw the Ayatollah off a building or not. That's been their answer so far. That has limited future goals there. So we will see about this. Now, but as I said, now the thing that's interesting is that we are hearing that Iran, and more importantly than just Iran, again, whenever you hear, well, Iran is saying something, when the mainstream news media in the United States is saying that, oh, Iran has said X, Y, or Z, the most important thing to find out is who is saying that. We know there are several news agencies like Tasnim, which is in Iran, that is controlled by the IRGC, not the Ayatollah, not the Iranian recognized international government. It is controlled by the IRGC, the terrorists of the Iranian government. And so when we hear news from Tasnim or certain other organizations like it, then we are hearing from the IRGC, the splinter faction in the government of Iran, and the one that is actively trying to extend this war. So if they are saying that they're looking to see more peace, then that is very different and more likely to be true. What I believe is happening is you're seeing both the IRGC and the Trump administration are doing the same thing. They're pausing to resupply. The United States isn't done with this conflict, nor is the IRGC. And you will see the IRGC once they reorganize, because we have been pummeling them for 4 months besides the last 2 weeks. We have destroyed a large number of their infrastructure, their personnel, a lot of their missiles and their drones. They need to resupply, reestablish their supply lines, reestablish their communications between leadership and the fighters. They need time to reorganize. The United States needs time to get more missiles, more bombs, more ships, more of our preparations in place to better fight against Iran. So this is normal. We have supply lines. We need to refresh those supply lines from the United States point of view. So the pause right now is more about resupply and reestablishing, reorganizing the ongoing conflict than it is an end of the conflict. The good news is the United States never stopped talking to the recognized government of Iran, the Ayatollah. And if the Ayatollah is able to use this break to reassert his power over the IRGC, then we could see this conflict end. The main problem with this conflict going on isn't the United States, it's Iran. The mainstream news media won't tell you that because they want Donald Trump and the Republicans and MAGA to lose in the 2026 elections. This is all about politics for them. It isn't, because the Democrats, we're talking about Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, the Democrats that have been in office for 20, 30 years, they actually support fighting against Iran. They actually despise Iran as much as any Republican, as much as any MAGA or America First. They despise Iran as much as most Americans do. So it's not a question of, are they upset about the conflict? They aren't. They're concerned about control of the politics separate of the conflict. And so that's very important to understand. So when we're hearing the IRGC telling international news agencies that they're going to respect the pause, that they're going to respect the U.S. having stopped, the U.S. is resupplying, they're doing the same thing. Do not take that as this is over. Don't take that as they have given up. This is literally them just reorganizing to have another wave of attacks. And I am absolutely confident, and I would bet money, that you will see the IRGC attack another ship in the Strait of Hormuz, and that will reignite the next wave of 2 to 3 weeks of continuous fighting between the U.S. and the IRGC. I think you're going to see that happen. I still think this entire conflict ends before Labor Day. By the end of August, I think this is going to be done. I think that the IRGC have lost so many command officers. They have lost so much personnel, so much infrastructure, so many weapons that they are substantially weakened. And here's the thing, they can only get so weak. The Middle Eastern culture between governments is very much dominated by strength, by the ability to saber rattle. And if you are beat down, if you lose a war so badly that your military is decapitated effectively, then you are a target by every other Middle Eastern nation. You are a target to be taken over. You're too weak to continue to survive. And that's why when we have seen conflicts, which have lasted 14 years in the Middle East, Iran has had 14-year wars with some of its neighbors, they always end the war before their militaries become too weak, before they actually decapitate their military capabilities, because they always need to maintain an internal and external strength. They have to look like they're capable of continuing to fight. And even if they lose, they won't lose enough to still be a threat to their enemies. So we are quickly approaching a point where the IRGC is too weak to be considered a legitimate threat by other nations, and that would encourage the other nations to punish Iran even more and take over control. Like I said, the Kurds in northeast Iran are sweeping in because the IRGC is too depleted and their communications are so deficient that they're not able to repel the Kurds as they have done in the past. The biggest thing stopping the Kurds from sweeping through the northeast of Iran, believe it or not, is the United States. We're the ones holding them back. Even Turkey isn't holding back the Kurds. It's the United States. So there is a big difference here. And I know I'm talking about a lot, but we're going to get to it. But I wanted to make sure this is clear for you guys because the mainstream news media doesn't take time to talk about all of this. And we even have, on the other side, in just pure negotiations and economically, we have Oman is talking with Iran right now. Again, talking about whether or not anyone will be able to charge a fee for ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, which no one should be able to do. That neither the United States, Iran, Oman, no one should be able to do that. That is a natural waterway. That should not be blocked off. If it does, then you could see retaliation in other waterways like the Gulf of America, Panama Canal, Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, the South China Sea. You could see the various seas and oceans where you will see countries try and take over and charge people for doing that. The channel between England and France, another one where you could see nations saying, well, I can charge a fee then. If that can happen in the Middle East, it can happen everywhere around the world. And that will throw off the economics of the world, and it will lead to more fighting. Nobody wants that. So I think that you will see that Oman and Iran will agree that there won't be a fee because of the pressure from the United States and the rest of the world against that, because otherwise it continues the fighting. And I think the economics in Iran is helping us to minimize that. Okay. So I've talked a little bit about what's going on with Iran. I hope that makes sense. I will check the comments in just a few moments. I see Kinsugi has joined us. I know some people have some comments about what we're talking about with Iran. I will get that in one moment. I just want to finish up the international. Then I'll come back for the comments. So looking at what we're seeing here with Germany. Now, this is breaking news. There has been an update on this. We do know that this weekend, a insane, radicalized German citizen decided to take a car and drive it into a crowd at a parade, killing one individual and injuring 19 others. The assailant, the criminal, jumped out of the car with a machete, started stabbing people, and escaped. That's what happened. Now, why did this happen? Well, the first thing is the event that the car drove into, well, that was an LGB alphabet event. It was the German Pride Parade. And this maniac decided to run them over. Now, you might think, well, who would do that? If you listen to the mainstream American news, you would think it's the AfD, the German far-right political party. You would think, well, it's them who are basically neo-Nazis in many people's mind. And it was the neo-Nazis that did it. That would be wrong. That's your programming. If you think it was the AfD, the German far-right that attacked gays and lesbians and everyone else in the alphabet, you would be wrong. That's your prejudice speaking. The actual fact, and you've been misinformed, it was actually a German who is the son of immigrants, as I understand, a German who is Islamic, and it was an affront to his religion. It was religious. It wasn't the politics of Germany. It's the politics of Iran. It's the politics of fanatical terrorism that caused the action in Germany. That's why he rammed the crowd. That's why he stabbed a bunch of people. It's because he was a fanatical terrorist. That's why. It was religious, not political. It wasn't the far right. And so, and remember, we were told in America, if you listen to the American left, the anti-Second Amendment movement, they told you, don't worry, if you just get rid of all of the firearms, everyone will be safe. And yet, once again, we have yet another international reminder that that's absolutely not true, because they drove a car into a parade and then pulled out a machete and started stabbing people. So I know there's someone on the left who'll say, well, that's because of knife control. We have to have knife control. And then you have to have car control. And you have no freedom anymore. Because everything is a weapon if someone is crazed or if they are a criminal with a desire to cause violence. There is no way to stop the violence. If someone in their mind wants violence, you can't stop it. You can only deal with it and minimize it. But I think it's very important. So Germany was hunting for this Islamist, which is why you didn't hear a lot about this in the United States, because the person who did this, 21-year-old, is a known problem. He is a known agitator. He is a known threat to the public, and he is known to be a Muslim. And his reason for being a threat to the public is because he's a Muslim. Now, again, he is a German. He was born in Germany. His family comes from overseas. And think of that as you will. But he is a German, and he is a Muslim, and he believes in his Muslim faith far more than his German nationality, and that's why he committed this act. There is more on this. There is a further update on this. We now know, where is it? There. So we now know, oh, here it is. Sorry. That the suspect was shot dead today. Police knew who they were going for. He's 21 years old, and they tracked him down and they killed him. Now, if you notice in the Reuters article, they mention the suspect. They don't mention the known fact about this individual, that he is an Islamist, that his attacks, this is not the first time that he's attacked individuals. He is a known threat in Germany to authorities. They don't mention his religion. They don't mention his age. They actually avoid talking about the details of why did he do this. That's because the news media wants to get a very specific kind of message out to the American people. I'll show you another thing. This is from CNN. CNN, in talking about the suspect in the Berlin Pride attack, shot dead in the police operation. Now, this is important. Again, they're mentioning a suspect. They're not mentioning that he's an Islamist. They're not mentioning his motivation for why he did this. They go on to mention, and you'll see, in talking, they talk about the entire event. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs down. They have this tiny paragraph that actually tells you anything about the suspect himself. And what they don't mention in this story, they don't mention who this person is. We have their name. We know who did this. Reuters didn't mention their name, and you see CNN is not mentioning their name because they don't want to connect this to the Muslim faith, which is part and parcel. It is the reason why this happened. They want you to have the illusion that it's the AfD, the German right wing, so that you would think, well, right wing equals violence, and therefore in America, right wing equals violence, vote Democrat. It is a subliminal consistency in the messaging to confuse you on the truth of what is happening in front of you. And that is really sick. They mentioned the suspect, again, they mentioned his name is Abdul B. Why did they not provide Abdul's full name? They know what Abdul's full name is. There is no reason for them to abbreviate his last name other than to minimize the connection to Islam, because they are protecting Islam and the Islamic fanatical beliefs. They're protecting that here in America, again, to emphasize that this guy is more, or to emphasize the belief that this guy is in right-wing German, like the AfD, which we consider neo-Nazis, which many people consider neo-Nazis, rather than connecting him to the Islamic terror that we see with Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. This was on purpose by CNN. They tell you he's 21 and he's a German citizen of Lebanese background. And he was born in Germany in 2005. That's it. And the rest of the article goes on, but they don't tell you anything about him. That yes, he's a suspect in Islamic circles. You know, when you go into this, and if you actually look into the story, you'll see very quickly. Now, this is an article that comes from, this is from the Associated Press. The suspect in the deadly Berlin Pride attack was killed in a confrontation with police. Now, most of this is behind a firewall, but what you do see is that they tell you the guy's name is Abdul Balut. Why wouldn't they mention that? Why is CNN hiding that? Why is it that we're seeing that Reuters was hiding that from the public? It is a known fact. And this assailant is dead. He has Lebanese roots and was killed following a search that lasted 24 hours in downtown Berlin. He is sought because previously thought that he had joined a militant Islamic State group. Again, is militant Islam, which is the IRGC, is Hamas, is Hezbollah, is the Houthis. It is the exact same model of terrorism that Iran has been exporting throughout the world for 47 years. And this is the net result. They're protecting, they're hiding this. And again, this is American-facing media. If you go to other sources around the world, you will see the truth about this. But if you're looking at American media, they will deny this, they will hide this, they will gloss it over, they will push it aside, and they're trying not to talk about this story because it is uncomfortable for the American left that praise the Islamic ideology to actually address what is one of the consequences of the fanatical Islamic ideology. Again, that doesn't mean everyone who's a Muslim is evil. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that everyone who is a Muslim is a terrorist or a fanatic. It isn't. But there are a large number of fanatics in Islam, many of them aligned with one of the many terror groups supported by Iran. That is true. And we need to deal with that truth because if we don't, then this same problem spreads around the world. How many others like this guy who's just the same as, remember there were the two, we covered this, 2 months ago? Remember there were the two teen brothers from Pennsylvania that came into, they were 19-year-olds, they came into New York City to throw homemade grenades in front of Gracie Mansion looking to kill police, news media, and American citizens. And they did that because they were Islamic militants. They had gone overseas, got trained by ISIS, came back to America, and they were throwing around handmade grenades trying to kill, and they were killing leftists too, by the way. The leftists were in the same crowd they were throwing these grenades into. Thankfully, they didn't go to shop class. They didn't make their grenades properly, which is the only reason why the police, American citizens, even the leftist protesters didn't die, because they were trying to kill them all. If you ignore the threat and the cause of the threat, then the threat gets bigger. And we saw that down at Mamdani's, the mayor's mansion in New York City. We saw that here 2 months ago. This is a growing problem, not a small problem, not a hidden, and as much as they're trying to hide it, you can't. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. All right. One last thing on international, and then we'll go on with the show. But one last thing about the international is, you notice Nicaragua's parliament has eliminated elections. Nicaragua, socialist country. Do you notice every socialist country does this? As much as we have to deal with the Islamic threat, we also have to accept and recognize and deal with the socialist threat around the world. Every single socialist nation starts off with rainbows, puppies, and unicorns. Every single time. Everything will be milk and honey every time. That is the sales pitch they all use, that they all say that this time it will be different. This time everyone gets a puppy. This time everyone will be a billionaire. Things will be perfect for everyone. Every time they have said that. They said that in Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, North Korea. They said that in China. They say that everywhere there is socialism, every single time. And every single time we see that it devolves into an authoritarian dictatorship where the government is killing its own people, starving its own people. The people become abject. They live in abject poverty every single time. And Nicaragua is just another example, as was Venezuela, as is Cuba, as is North Korea. It's always the same result every single time. And here we are. It took a little while. And mind you, this was the nation, Nicaragua, Ortega, was praised by Bernie Sanders, a known self-avowed socialist communist who said, no, this is perfect. This is great for South America. This will be great for the South American people. This should expand. And it did, because we saw that affect Chavez and Venezuela. And what happened to the people in Venezuela? They got convinced by the promise, by Bernie Sanders, by the Democratic Socialists of America, saying this time it will be different. You can be like Nicaragua. Nicaragua was doing great. You could be just like them. And Venezuela did, and the people became impoverished. They were starving to death. And the Venezuelan government was killing its own people. We see the same thing in Nicaragua. And now, just like in Venezuela and Cuba, they now have a dictator. There is no government. The elections are gone. They came out and said it. Oh, well, it's because of, and they're blaming it on Orange Man Bad. Because everything in the world is blamed on Orange Man Bad. Everything in the world is blamed on MAGA. It's America's fault. It's the right wing of America that's at fault. It's Donald Trump that's at fault. Donald Trump did not install Ortega as Nicaragua's leader back in 1985. Donald Trump didn't bring socialism to Venezuela or to Nicaragua. He didn't do that. You know who did? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders supported the socialism in Nicaragua and in Venezuela. He helped to bolster the socialism in those South American countries and is responsible for the deaths that resulted in that, because of his encouragement, because of his support, because of his extending the lifeline or lifespan of the socialist systems in these countries. More people died. More people have suffered. Not the opposite. Socialism didn't bring any safety net. And as much as we hear Harvard and Columbia and Cornell University and Binghamton University, as much as they're trying to push socialism onto our kids, this is the reality. It always results in this. And what's going to follow this in Nicaragua? Even more poverty, even more starvation, even more of the Nicaraguan government killing its own people. It is always the same system. Mind you, Nicaragua is already a poor nation. They already suffer from poverty. They already have a government that kills its own people. That's already been happening, and it will only get worse now that there is even the pretense of any other form of government no longer exists, because they're bad people, because they're not socialists. And you have to be a socialist to want to be part of the government, because you want to change the government. But of course, if you're a socialist and the government's socialist, well, there's nothing to change. So there is no need for a new leader. So they maintain the same leader. Why do we have elections? If you're a socialist and I'm a socialist, well, then everyone's a socialist. So there is no other government to have. There's no competing ideas. There's nothing that needs to change, because any change you as a socialist would come up with, the government as a socialist would have already thought of, and they're working on the same level as you. You just got to tough it through. Yeah, there's some poverty, but don't worry. At the end of the rainbow, after the dictatorship of Ortega in Nicaragua, you know what you get? You get rainbows and puppies at the end of all the dictatorship. Don't worry about it. It's not important. Orange Man bad. MAGA is bad. Anyone who isn't a socialist is bad. Don't worry about those things. This is insane. And this is why the left have largely gone completely silent on this story. You don't hear anyone asking Bernie Sanders about Nicaragua. You don't hear him being asked about every socialist nation that he has supported, that they have completely collapsed. Their people are starving. The government is killing their own people. And every single one of them turned into a dictatorship. No one is mentioning or asking that of Bernie, as Bernie is running around going, no, what we need in America is more socialism. It's those evil billionaires. The evil billionaires aren't lining people up in the city streets and killing them. The billionaires aren't running the governments of Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea. They're not in charge. You may not like the way they run a business, but that business isn't killing people. That business isn't driving everyone into poverty and killing the people that complain about it. The governments that Bernie has supported are doing that. And Bernie Sanders is complicit in that problem, and he should be held accountable for that. The mainstream media, of course, won't do that. The mainstream news media, Bernie's a Democrat in everything except the name. He runs as an independent. He runs as an independent on the Democratic line with Democratic donations, with the support of Democratic candidates and the Democratic infrastructure. If he was actually independent, he wouldn't be able to afford to run as a candidate, let alone to maintain his position in the Senate as long as he has. Because independents don't have money. They don't have infrastructure. They don't have teams going out there to talk to the news media, to set up various events across the country. They don't have private jets. They don't have private security and vehicles to take them to and from. Oh, yeah, Bernie believes in climate change, which is why he has a private jet that flies him across the country. Why is he flying across the country? To collect money, not to save the planet, not to help you, a poor person. He spends more money on that private jet flying from place to place than most local communities that have him spend on poverty. It's ridiculous. Tens of thousands of dollars just in jet fuel, which, according to the left, is increasing the amount of greenhouse gases and pollution in the world. And he's spending money on that not to improve the government, not to improve the planet, but to get more votes and to get more money. Think about that, folks. No one really likes to talk about that, about Bernie and the socialism that he supports. He's rich. He's a multimillionaire with 3 homes, complaining about billionaires, and Bernie Sanders has donated less money to the IRS than I have. In Bernie Sanders' entire life, he has voluntarily given the IRS less money than I have. And I gave $1. That was 10 years ago. And Bernie Sanders still has not exceeded that. He's not much of a socialist now, is he? But again, look at his track record. Look at the support. Look at what socialist countries always do. And the mainstream media wants to hide from this. They want to minimize this. They don't want to talk about this. You must. If you really want to tell me that socialism is a better system, that it's a better form of government, then deal with the reality that has always been part. In every government, everywhere in the world, every time socialism has been tried, this is always part of the process and the pattern. Every single time. It is only a matter of when it happens, how long it takes for these things to happen, but they always happen. And every time I've had a conversation, whether it's at a college, at a speaking event, whether it's online with different channels, every time I've had to talk about socialism and my real world experience living in the Soviet Union, in Moscow, in Tbilisi, in Riga, under the Soviet Union, my real world experiences of socialism and the realities of socialism in the world, the exact history that we always get told is new this time. It's always brand new. They fixed the problems. And every time it's always the same thing. They hide from this. They have no answer for this. Their answer is, yeah, but that was the last time someone tried it. This time it's different. This time we have a solution. Their solution is to do the same thing. Case in point, Zoran Mandami, straight up socialist. What is he doing? He is copy-pasting failed socialist ideas that come from Washington State, from Oregon, from Kansas City, and he's putting them in place in New York City, where they will fail. They failed everywhere else in the United States. They failed everywhere in the world they have been done, and he's just copy-pasting and doing it in New York and telling you, this time it'll be different because he's Zoran Mandami, as if that means anything. And he's telling you that, no, but this is the new socialism. It's not like the old socialism, except it's the exact same programs. It is the exact same policies. It is the exact same system. It failed everywhere else. Why is it not going to fail this time? It will. And the ultimate result is always the same. You're looking at it right now with Nicaragua and Ortega, their president. It's a dictatorship. People have less freedom. They have less food. They have shorter life expectancies. That is socialism every single time. All right. I wanted to cover that because this is all about the international. Now I'm going to go back. Oh, crap. Spilled my water. Spilled water. Well, I didn't electrocute myself. That's good. Hang on 1 second before I electrocute myself. No, I'm serious. I spilled an entire cup of water. It's all over my desk right now. And on my mouse. Oh, God, this is bad. Oh, it's nothing like being live, huh, folks? Live. We're doing it live. We're doing it live, and life just had a big accident there. But before I kill myself on screen because of some electrical hazard, let me try and deal with this real quick. All over all my electronics. All the electronics is now wet. Isn't that great? All the electronics are wet. So if you see me suddenly get zapped, call 911. Hopefully that will not be an outcome. Hopefully I will be okay. We can only pray, except for the people who don't like me. I'm sure all the socialists, all the Democrats out there that hate my guts, they're like, yeah, this could be it. This is finally the way to silence Mike. We'll silence him for once. Why? Because he's going to get electrocuted. Yeah, well, that highly unlikely. I have survived worse things than this. But sorry about that. Oh, God, that's such a mess. Anyway, let me go back to some of the comments here. And thank you, everyone who's been making comments. What is this? Come on. Why is the system? And of course, now the system wants to run slow. All right, let me go back. Now, I know there were a couple of John came in. Oh, wow. John R. came in with a $12 super chat. Thank you for that, John. Great show, Mike. The audience really wants to hear about the dolls next. That is what's next. That is what I was building up to, is to talk about the Minnesota trans dolls. It's a horrible story, and I'm going to be talking about that in just a moment here. Let's see. And we have also, so that's $12. Thank you for the $12 super chat. I really appreciate that. It matters. It makes a big difference. Thank you for that. And we also have from Phil another $2. Khan's too young for all of this foolishness. He gets another biscuit. So that's 2 biscuits for Khan, my dog. And after the show, he will get both biscuits. He's laying down next to me right now, so that's a good sign. Let me go into some of the comments. Thank you for the super chats, the Rumble rants, for being members of the channel. It makes a massive difference, folks, and I really thank you about that. I really do. Let's see. Phil says, Hassan's audience thinks the dogs are haram. That would make them bad, evil, not kosher, for lack of a better word. They may actually think that, but it's insane. It is an insane way to look at animals, and that doesn't, in my mind, that will never justify the abuse that Hassan Piker does to his dog. And it's just so that Hassan Piker can make more money, just so he can get sympathy, and people go, oh, look at the cute puppy, and give him money. That's why Hassan Piker has his dog. I don't have my dog on 24/7 while I'm on live streaming. You'll see him, if you see him on a show, you'll see him for like 30 seconds. Why? Because I love my dog. He's not a part of my show. He's my dog. I love him. And I don't need him to be on camera. Mind you, if I did put my dog on camera, he is extremely cute. He's a wonderful, people love my dog. They see pictures of him, they go crazy. I walk down the street, everybody wants to own my dog or steal my dog. Every woman loves my dog. I mean, if I wanted to make money, I'd just have a live stream of my dog and I'd make 10 times, $10,000 a month just by showing a live stream of nothing but my dog. But that's not what I do. So yeah, Hassan really pisses me off about that. We got a comment here from Bronner. Yes, Section 219 of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027. Yes, I mentioned that. It's the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, which is basically just it's technical. It's just a pact. The United States is using technology with Israel, and Israel is using U.S. technology. It's not that they have control, as I mentioned. Bronner mentions that he has concerns about this. Well, you would have the same concerns, and I think you do, about NATO, about the European Union, about our relationships with most of the countries of Asia, like South Korea, Tokyo, Australia, Thailand, the Philippines. Yeah, okay. I'm not saying it's a perfect deal, but it's not a big deal. It's not what the left is trying to make it seem like. Whoops. What the left is trying to make it seem like, because they want money. And that's the difference. They're looking for money, not for improving people's life. Kintsugi's with us. Hello, Kintsugi. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. For some reason, because of all the water, every time I click anything, it tries to shut down the stream, the live stream. All right. Yeah. So the water is messing with my computer right now. Every couple seconds, it's trying to shut down the live stream. And I don't know why. It shouldn't be doing that, but it is. All right. Anyway. Stop that. Okay. Literally every 4 seconds, it's trying to shut down. What wire? Hang on 1 second, folks. Something's going on with Restream. Literally, my entire computer is glitching out right now. Like every 4 seconds. I don't know why. Every 4 seconds. Something is wet. Yes, Houston, we have a big problem. All right. What I will do is I need to shut down wipe down my computer and the electronics, and then come back. Something is going on. Yes, I see you there, Kintsugi. And yes, I'm going to be right back, folks. But something's going crazy. I don't know what it is.